They say that in the 1960s, New York City didn't belong to the mayor. It belonged to the five families. They wanted his numbers racket, they wanted the drug trade, and they wanted Bumpy to collect the street tax for them.
And the face of absolute power? Well, that changed most of all. Here, only one man ruled.
On a freezing Tuesday night in 1964, a secret meeting took place. A meeting that the history books won't tell you about. On one side of the table sat the representatives of the Genovese crime family, the most feared organization in America. They had dominated New York for decades, and tonight they had come to take over Harlem's underground empire.
But on the other side sat a man who had spent more time in Alcatraz than most people spend in school.
Ellsworth Bumpy Johnson, the undisputed King of Harlem, who feared no man or mob.
The room was a battlefield before a single word was even spoken. Two powers colliding in the shadows. With one simple gesture, the meeting was over. The line in the sand had been drawn. The Italians laid down their terms, millions of dollars in cash, wrapped in an offer that was impossible to refuse. They wanted his numbers racket. They wanted the drug trade. And they wanted Bumpy to collect the street tax for them.
But what the Genovese family failed to understand was that Bumpy wasn't just another street hustler.
This was the day Bumpy Johnson declared war, a war of silence, shadows, and absolute survival.
The Genovese family had all the power, all the money, and the police. But Bumpy had the streets. But Bumpy was a giant on his own turf. He stood up, taller than any of them.
He made it clear. Harlem was his city. And if they wanted a piece of it, they would have to take it by force.
With one simple gesture, the meeting was over. The line in the sand had been drawn.
Behind him, the room erupted in fury.
You Protestant High-Rise Marbles will burn for this! You'll regret this!
But Bumpy didn't stop. He had spent his whole life fighting. This was just another Tuesday. He opened the door to the outside world, ready to unleash the storm of Harlem against the mob. This was the day Bumpy Johnson declared war. A war of silence, shadows, and absolute survival. His soldiers were waiting. His drivers were ready. The entire neighborhood was already mobilized. From this night on, no Italian gangster would cross 110th Street without looking over his shoulder. The Genovese family had all the power, all the money, and the police. But Bumpy had the streets. And on those very streets, Bumpy Johnson was about to teach them the ultimate lesson in respect. The board was set. The first piece was moved. The Harlem Cold War had officially begun. To understand why the Genovese family wanted Harlem, you have to understand the man at the very top, Vito Genovese. Vito didn't just want more money, he wanted absolute, unchecked control over every single penny flowing through New York.
While Bumpy Johnson was ruling the streets of Harlem with a code of respect, the Genovese shadow was creeping northward. The Italians looked at a map of Upper Manhattan and didn't see people. They saw a massive, untaxed gold mine.
That gold mine was the illegal lottery known as the Numbers Racket, the absolute lifeblood of the local black economy. For decades, this racket was run by local bankers and protected by Bumpy's own enforcers to keep the money inside Harlem.
But the Genovese family saw a massive opening. They didn't come in with guns first. They came in with quiet corruption.
They began bribing the precinct captains, the beat cops, and the local politicians who were supposed to be Bumpy's allies.
The infiltration was incredibly subtle. A Genovese soldier would set up a legitimate front on the very edge of Bumpy's territory.
Then, slowly, they would offer higher payouts to the local numbers runners, outbidding the King of Harlem on his own turf.
It was a cold, calculated move to starve Bumpy of his street resources long before a single bullet was ever fired.
But Vito Genovese made one critical error in his calculation that would cost him everything.
He assumed that because Bumpy was an independent operator, he was isolated and completely alone. He didn't realize that in Harlem, Bumpy wasn't just a simple boss. He was a trusted folk hero.
The moment the Italians started moving into the neighborhood, the community reported every single movement back to the king.
The Italians were walking directly into a giant trap where the very walls were watching them.
As the Genovese family tightened their grip on the surrounding police precincts, Bumpy's internal network went to work.
The local lookouts were positioned. The safe houses were stocked with weapons. The border was locked down tight.
Bumpy knew the time for waiting was over. The Italians had pushed too far into his territory.
He waited for the right moment to strike back, tracking every single Genovese asset in the neighborhood.
He listened to the reports coming in from across the city,
The east side is
his face remaining perfectly calm.
downtown looks clear for now.
The air in the neighborhood grew thick and heavy with tension. Everyone knew a storm was coming.
Bumpy began shutting down all the pathways the Italians used to move their illegal goods through Harlem.
The invisible border between the five families and Harlem was turning into a battlefield. Bumpy watched the Genovese enforcers moving through his streets, his mind running 1,000 steps ahead.
So he chose a different strategy. He decided to let the Italians make the first major move. He let them think they were winning. He let them get comfortable in their new positions.
And that comfort was about to lead the Genovese family into the most fatal mistake of their lives.
In the underworld, there is a very thin line between a smart business move and a total declaration of war.
The Genovese family, completely blinded by their own power and greed, was about to cross that line. They committed the one ultimate sin that Bumpy Johnson could never forgive or ignore.
A mid-level Genovese enforcer decided to make a brutal example out of a runner who refused to switch sides.
You disloyal piece of shit, you're switching? You will, or else!
It wasn't just a physical assault on a local worker. It was a calculated display of absolute dominance.
The Italians wanted to show the people of Harlem that they were the new, undisputed law in town.
They thought this public display would terrify Bumpy's workers into submission. Instead, they had just handed Bumpy Johnson the exact leverage he needed.
Within minutes, the news of the attack reached the very top floor of the Hotel Theresa.
The attack is spreading! I have to warn them! Almost there! Hold on!
When the report reached Bumpy's desk, the entire room went completely silent.
His young lieutenants were furious. They wanted to grab their shotguns and hit the streets immediately.
But Bumpy held up a hand. He knew that reacting with pure emotion was a loser's move.
An emotional response was exactly what the Genovese family was desperately hoping for. They wanted a chaotic street war that would trigger a complete police crackdown on Bumpy's operations.
Bumpy understood that real power isn't about who hits first. It's about who survives the last move.
By assaulting an innocent man in public, the Italians had made a massive strategic error.
They hadn't just attacked a numbers runner, they had insulted the entire community's sense of safety.
But Tommy Greco and his crew celebrated. They thought they had finally intimidated the King of Harlem.
To the King of Harlem!
He won't be trouble no more. He learned his lesson.
Harlem is ours.
They were wrong. Bumpy didn't send a hit squad into their neighborhood that night. Instead of using bullets, he decided to attack them exactly where it hurt the most, their pockets.
He ordered every single numbers runner and shopkeeper under his protection to cut off all Italian business.
Overnight, a complete economic blockade fell over the Genovese operations inside Harlem.
The millions of dollars the Italians expected to collect from the streets suddenly vanished into thin air.
Vito Genovese's men were left with a massive organization and absolutely no cash flow. Every single set of eyes in the neighborhood was now locked onto the Italian enforcers.
They realized that the streets had gone completely silent. Nobody was talking to them anymore.
Where is everyone?
It's too quiet. The Genovese family wanted to fight a street war. But Bumpy had changed the battlefield entirely. He was starving their machine from the inside out, waiting for the pressure to break them down.
The Italians had moved their pieces with violence. But Bumpy was about to finish the game with absolute silence.
While the Genovese family was preparing for a loud, bloody war in the streets, Bumpy Johnson was fighting a war they couldn't even see.
Bumpy knew that if he sent his men out with shotguns, the crooked police, many on the Italian payroll, would lock him up for life.
Stay close.
No, Bumpy's retaliation would be surgical. It would be an invisible siege that would starve the Genovese machine from within. The Genovese family relied on the Numbers Racket infrastructure that Bumpy had spent decades building.
In a series of secret midnight meetings at the Theresa, Bumpy gave his people a simple, unwavering order: total non-cooperation. Total non-cooperation.
No deals, no talking.
Overnight, the most experienced numbers runners, the men who knew every single client in Harlem, simply vanished from the streets. The Italians were left holding a massive, expensive territory, with absolutely no one willing to collect the money for them.
But cutting off the cash flow was only the first part of Bumpy's masterful counter-strategy.
Suddenly, the Italians were losing millions of dollars in highly valued contraband and facing intense pressure from the law.
The Genovese bosses were being hit from the streets and from the feds, and they had absolutely no proof that Bumpy was behind any of it.
This was Bumpy's masterpiece of manipulation. He turned the Genovese family's own panic directly against them.
Suddenly, the Italians stopped trusting their own brothers. They started pointing fingers at each other in the dark.
You sold us out! Liar, Yarat!
Prove it!
Pirates!
The Italians had more soldiers, more machine guns, and more cash, but Bumpy had the complete loyalty of Harlem. Every single day that passed without violence was another day that the Genovese family's power and morale crumbled.
The blockade was working perfectly. The Italian mob's influence over the neighborhood was dying a slow, quiet death.
They were being completely locked out of the community. Nobody would look at them, let alone do business with them.
Bumpy Johnson sat quietly on the top floor of the Theresa, watching his invisible siege slowly strangling the Italian giants.
He didn't need to fire a single shot to make them bleed. He just needed patience and absolute discipline.
The pressure from the five families was mounting on the local enforcers. They demanded immediate results from Harlem.
Results now!
The Italians realized that the quiet war was destroying their reputation across the entire city of New York.
They decided that they couldn't wait any longer for Bumpy to make a move. They were going to bring the war directly to him.
They were going to strike the heart of Bumpy's empire, hoping to end the invisible siege with a sudden, brutal execution. But Bumpy wasn't surprised. He had anticipated their desperation weeks before they ever made the decision to move.
He knew that when a cornered beast attacks, it makes the biggest, most reckless mistakes of its life.
They came to honor the man who had protected their homes and their livelihoods from outside colonization.
Today, the name Bumpy Johnson isn't just a simple footnote in the dark history of American crime. It remains a powerful symbol of absolute resistance and calculated strategic genius.
He proved that against even the most powerful organizations in the world, true community loyalty could win.
The Genovese family is still mentioned in history books. But in Harlem, only one name still echoes through the brownstones. Ellsworth Bumpy Johnson, the brilliant man who stared directly down at the Mafia and never once blinked.
His legacy was cemented not just in the blood he spilled, but in the community he chose to protect. His story taught the streets that real power is a quiet, steady hand that knows exactly when to move.
He passed the torch to a new generation, leaving behind a blueprint of absolute street authority. His resting place became a quiet monument to a time when a single man could defy a whole empire.
He moved his pieces with absolute calm. He played the game of life exactly like a grandmaster.
His name remains written in the dark, permanent ink of history, a legend that time can never erase. war was won. The legend was set. The Harlem Cold War had officially come to an end.